Upfront and Outspoken with Bob Williams. If you love the Constitution,
man is not free unless government is limited.
If you love freedom,
as government expands, liberty contracts.
If you believe in personal responsibility, if you believe America is still the greatest nation on earth, then get ready for an experience you'll never forget. This is Upfront and Outspoken. Here's your host, Bob Williams.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
And welcome back to the Friday edition of Upfront Outspoken. Of course, I'm your host, Bob Williams, and I have a special roundtable coming up here shortly. But I want to give this program note out. Next week, I haven't decided exactly what day. If you live in Savannah, Georgia, you are going to be wanting to listen because I have some audio that is going to knock you on your keister that came directly from Edna Jackson herself. That's right, the mayor. She announced her run for mayor again, but guess what? I've got some audio that is going to knock you on your backside. You may want to reconsider having her as your mayor. All right, at this point in time, I want to bring my panel out. Of course, we have Jonathan Wolfman of Passionate Justice, which is heard every Saturday right here on the Starcom Radio Network at 2 p.m. We got Fred Brower of the Fred Brower Report, heard Mondays. Or rather, I'll get it right. Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And our newest member to the Starcom Radio Network is Les Jackson of Open Talk. I want to welcome all of you to the program.
Well, good morning, Bob, and good morning, Les and Fred.
Good morning.
Now, Fred, your program, Open Talk, before we get into the discussion today, debuts March 23rd at 5 p.m. Central Time. Tell us a little bit about your program, first off.
Well, let me tell you just like this. What we do is we bring you the news and views, open talk, straight from the street. We look at it from a different perspective. We look at it from the ground level and then take it all the way to the top so we can get to the truth and make sure that the truth is being told without any of the BS and all of the integrated monopoly that we often hear amongst men and women that try to put politics into the game.
Ain't that the way it should be, though? I mean, think about it. You hear it on mainstream media. They spoon feed you little sound bites, and they don't want to hit the actual heart of the story. And it sounds like your program is going to do just the opposite. You are going to be hitting people with the facts.
Yes, we go right to the street. We go right to the actual people that are not scared to stand up and to make wrongs right, that we know. The political mumbo-jumbo and lingo has crisscrossed the system. So we're going to try to get it all right and put it right here for the listener to hear it so that they are informed and they know exactly what's going on.
Well, we'll look forward to your first episode. And like I said, that'll be Monday at 5 p.m. right here in the Starcom Radio Network. Now, guys, the reason I brought all three of you on board, for this first half hour, I want to talk about the latest that is going on in Ferguson. The fact that 2 officers were wounded, thankfully not critically. Both have been released. But I want to get each one of your takes as to what the hell's going on in Ferguson now. Unless you're the new guy, we're going to give you first shot.
Well, you know what? I tell you what. Bob, here's what's happening. This thing didn't start overnight. I was looking at some stuff, that's some great facts right now, and I want to share it with everybody. Now, I understand that Ferguson is populated by about 21,103 people. You have a 67.4% black residency and a 29.3 white constituent. And what I can't understand about Ferguson is if you re-elected your mayor 3 times consecutively, this problem has been going on for a long time, and now I think we're getting the overspill.
And the question I have is, if you elect the same guy, like is going on down in Savannah, then you're bound, I mean, there has to be something that the people of Ferguson like about this guy.
Well, they liked him. They liked him up until the incident, and it's sad that the incident had to bring all of this about. But at the same time, I asked myself, what happened to the votes? Where were the voters, and why did they go out in a predominantly, matter of fact, a majority community of blacks, and go ahead and re-elect this guy over and over? They had to love him.
That's what I'm thinking as well. All right, Fred, I know you're very outspoken about certain issues. Let's hear your opinion about what's going on up there.
I think the Obama administration and Eric Holder have seriously compromised the ability of the Ferguson Police Department to do their job. I think that Eric Holder has compromised their safety. I think they've poured fuel on the fire, and I think they have unnecessarily and intentionally involved themselves in a state matter that was already resolved. The state of Missouri already investigated this incident. The grand jury handed out a ruling that they were not going to indict that officer. Gosh, his name, I forget his name now.
Darren Wilson.
Thank you. I just had I blanked out. Darren Wilson. They've already decided not to indict Darren Wilson, and I really believe if they'd had reason to indict him, they would have. All of the evidence showed that Michael Brown clearly attacked this officer.
Well, the other thing is too is I'm going to kind of step on you here for a minute, Brett. But
okay.
But the federal level at the DOJ, they also determined that there was no civil rights violated, and they exonerated Darren Wilson. So technically, it should have ended. But I want to get your perspective on what happened just the other night with these 2 officers who were ambushed. When is this going to end, do you think?
I don't think it's going to. This is it's kind of like reverse racism on steroids. I've used that term before. You have a black population that now the criminal element, the criminal part of that population has been emboldened, and it's not just in Ferguson. It's in a lot of other cities. The criminal part of the African American population now feels emboldened that they can challenge police authority, and now it escalated to what really amounts to sniper fire from a distance. Cops are being sniped. Now, my question is, how is a police force going to defend against that? Now the shooter's going to be 300, 400, 500 yards away.
Now, Jonathan, I want to bring you in on this. The events that happened in Ferguson in the last couple of days, with the officers literally being ambushed, I want to get your perspective, your thoughts about that.
Well, thanks. First of all, these guys need to be caught. They need to be prosecuted.
We can barely hear you there. We can barely hear you.
Obviously, a fair trial. They need to be found, caught, given a fair trial, and almost certainly put in jail for a very long time. One of the issues that struck me as I was listening to Starcom's broadcast right before your show on Democracy Now! Was that St. Louis County, in which Ferguson lies, has 90 separate jurisdictions. And one of the legislators there, I don't remember his or her name, I think it was a woman, suggested that one way maybe to begin to get at these issues is to ask the question, do we really need to spend the time and money to have 90 different school districts, water districts, police districts in St. Louis County? Couldn't we more regionalize it and make more uniform the rules and regulations that both the population and the police must live by? I just think it's an interesting question to throw out there.
Yeah, but the thing is, Jonathan, is the officers involved in this, they were literally ambushed.
Yes,
we know
they
that.
were.
They were ambushed.
I agree.
And in my opinion, the guy or gal or whoever it was that did this needs to be prosecuted, needs to be brought to justice.
I think I began by saying that.
Right, you did. But the thing that we're hearing coming directly out of Ferguson now, and I said it on my program earlier, is people are going, Yahoo! It's about time these officers are sniped. We're hearing this idiocy.
Well, as you say, those guys, the people who talk that way are idiots, and there will always be a percentage of the population, regardless, who feel, oh, this is my time for 5 seconds of fame, and I'm just going to be an absolute jackass, whether you're running across filming and you throw off your clothes and you streak, or you just put up your middle finger on a TV, or you say something absolutely blatantly ridiculous. Oh yes, great, some police officers were shot. That's absolutely stupid. And yes, these guys need to be the perps need to be gotten, but I think we need to say that you put it right, it's idiocy, and we just have to recognize it as idiocy. But I also think we have to recognize that the vast majority, regardless of race, knows that what happened in Ferguson 2 nights ago is just damn dead wrong.
Now, I want to bring Les in on this because, Les, you're in a repressed area of the country, Detroit. What can I tell you? I'm hearing some severe background noise coming in my headset here. Somebody's got something running or something going on. But I want to bring Les in. Now, Les, being in Detroit and being in an area that is economically repressed, how are people on the street taking to what is going on in Ferguson?
Well, I'm going to tell you just like this, Bob. We really are not concerned with Ferguson. We have our own issues that we deal with. The thing that people have to understand about the Ferguson incident, and matter of fact, if you looked at the report this morning that just came out from LaZer as well as CNN, they sat back and reported. See, the protesters themselves are upset because you have the bad element that will step in and take advantage or try to take advantage of a situation. And what we have here, we don't worry. Yes, it has been tit for tat. Tensions are high, and they're high everywhere because people don't trust the police. The police don't trust the people. I can understand that because we're all human beings. But at the same time, when I look at it, I sit back and I ask myself, just as CNN has asked themselves, how can a person take a pistol from 125 yards, shoot over a crowd, and hit 2 police officers? Now, it's something in the game that we're not hearing, and nobody's willing to actually investigate it.
Oh, well, I agree. I mean, hitting a target 100 plus You know, I'm hearing a time delay. Somebody's got something that's causing me to have a time delay, and I'm hearing it through the headset. But the thing is, for someone to shoot a pistol and be that accurate at that distance, I to be honest with you, I don't think it was a pistol. I got a hunch we're going to find out later
It was a
that it
rifle.
was, that it was a rifle or something of that
Probably
nature.
with a scope.
You know, but the point being is, here's my question to all of you. All right, we know racial tensions are high. We know this. We have been hearing over and over again, time and time again, about a young black man being killed by a white police officer, or a white guy being killed by a black police officer. It makes no difference. I'm gonna throw the race card right out of this. Do you think, and I want to get all your opinion, do you think we would have heard anything about Ferguson, Los Angeles, New York, Miami, if in fact these individuals who have been shot and killed would have just said, okay, yes sir, no sir, Mr. Officer, and cooperated? Would we have heard any of this?
Well,
No.
certainly in the Eric Garner case in New York, we would have, because the facts of the case there are somewhat different, and that is, when Eric Garner was accosted by police, he did not fight. They were on his neck virtually instantly, and in the illegal chokehold that they had, and it was illegal in New York since 1994, and every cop knew that. And you can excuse it all you want. Anybody can.
The thing is,
Excuse
Jonathan,
it all you want. But the fact is, not all I'm saying, Bob, is that not every one of these incidents is precisely the same. Simply because you have cops and young men, black or white, as you say, not every incident is the same. In the Garner case in New York, there seems to be much less justification for what the cops did.
But the thing is, though, Jonathan, okay, if you watch the entire video with Garner, you will see that he did indeed initially resist. This is what I'm talking about. He indeed did resist. And yes, chokehold, I'll admit, was illegal. It unfortunately ended in his death. But if you look at the video entirely from the beginning to end, you will see that yes, Gardner initially resisted. But my question is Michael Brown, Garner, the incident in Madison that just happened, if these people had cooperated initially, when you are said by the officer, let me see your identification, let me see this, let me see that, instead of throwing a tizzy fit or doing something stupid, would we have heard anything about Ferguson, anything about Madison, anything about New York? That's my question.
Well, Bob, can I jump in here real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, let me say this. Okay, because, and you know what? It's absolutely right what was said. Every one of these incidences have been different. What happened in New York? Now, here was a guy that was known to sell loose cigarettes. And let's go down to the bottom factor. Let's put this thing in its real perspective.
That's what I want.
This guy was in front of a Korean store. The Koreans got mad because he was out there daily, and he was selling loose cigarettes. And all of a sudden, because of what they are now calling unconscious racial bias, making that split decision, according to what the University of Berkeley has released, we are seeing people that are reacting to things that could have been solved easier on both cases. Both sides could have handled this a lot different. Let's not act like they couldn't. Come on, Bob.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Les. But what I'm saying is that had these guys, I don't care, you know, if I'm stopped by a police officer and he asks me for my driver's license, I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to cooperate with him every way I can, because if he detains me or if he arrests me, I will have my day in court. I will have an attorney, and I will walk away alive. But here you're seeing people who initially have resisted, either by running away from the officer, by turning around, running towards the officer, or some other manner being aggressive towards the officer, ending up dead. And my question is, why can't we as a society realize that if you cooperate with law enforcement, even though you may believe you are right, take your day in court, cooperate, you live to fight another day? What is wrong with society in that we, many within it decide, I am going to fight. I'm going to take my chances against that bullet.
I'm willing to think that, especially given what we have found out about that secret place that the Chicago cops have taken for many years now, that came out 2 weeks ago, that building, that largely unused building on the outskirts of Chicago, where they took largely minority members, not just blacks, and kept them there without charge, and sometimes there were beatings. I think what we don't sometimes perhaps realize is that the initial reaction of resistance is because minorities have, with some good reason, the sense that if they simply cooperate and go with the officer, their families may not see them again.
But the thing is, Jonathan, it doesn't just happen to minorities. It also happens to whites.
Right. But it happens to everybody, and I think that there is skepticism about what will happen if I initially cooperate. Let me just say one thing here. I live in the most liberal county, the most forward-thinking county, perhaps in the United States. It's very blue, it's very democratic, it's very liberal. Montgomery County, Maryland. And my 25-year-old son is a black man. He was adopted at 5 weeks old, and he's anyone's idea of a gentleman. He is beautifully well-spoken, and he's very polite, and yet he's also 6 foot and 220 pounds, and yes, he's black. And even if it means that the cops hear that he sees on his daily jaunts around town, and he's on the motorcycle a lot, he's in the motorcycle business, if the cops do not know him personally in this very forward-thinking, very liberal place, they assume that a black guy on a motorcycle is a felon, in that they assume, if they don't know him, that he's riding on a stolen motorcycle. And that's really how it is for far too many.
But the thing is, Jonathan, your son evidently is cooperating with law enforcement when he stopped. What we are seeing time and time again is those that end up on the bad end of the gun, the bad end of a chokehold or whatever, they initially resisted arrest. And my question...
I'm not saying that it's not smart to do what you're saying, but I think we simply have to understand that it may be human nature that if you don't think you're doing something wrong, yes, it would be smarter to cooperate immediately, of course, but I'm not certain that that's completely human nature. And then there's the other side of the equation, is, I think you used that term, Bob. The other side of the equation is, if a guy is being surrounded by initially 3 or 4, and then there was 9 to 11 cops surrounding Eric Garner in New York City, why on earth is the response to the initial lack of cooperation, why the hell is the response so lethal? Why can't they simply subdue him and cuff him? It's as if we're saying that if there's not immediate and total cooperation, the go-to response is to exert the kind of force, either with a gun or with one's body, or with 5 or 6 or 11 bodies to kill them? That doesn't make sense to
All right,
me.
here's the thing. All right, and now I've said it on my own program, okay, many times. I am a former military police officer. I served in the Army. I served with the 502nd MP Company, 2nd Armored Division, Fort Hood, Texas. All right, this was back in the 1970s. I myself wore the uniform of a police officer. When I was at the academy at Fort Gordon, Georgia, we were told that if we believed that there was imminent danger to us, then the use of deadly force was indeed authorized. If you resisted, we do whatever we can to take you down peacefully. But if you continue to resist, or you make it in a very aggressive move to us, it was, we could indeed use lethal force. But
when you saw the error, I'll just ask the question, and I won't hog the airwaves at this anymore, but I'll ask the question. Did you, and if you did, that's fine, but Bob, I'm just wondering, when you saw the entire tape of the Eric Garner incident, and I'm only talking about Eric because Les is right, it's not as if all these incidents are precisely the same, but when you saw the Eric Garner thing, did you feel that he was threatening the lives of those cops, that they should have felt legitimately that their lives were in danger?
Initially, no. I'm going to tell you that right now. Initially, no. But when he started making the movements he did and the way he had positioned himself, again, I would say no. Were the officers, what was the officer right in calling for backup? Yes, he was right. How he was taken out.
That.
How
yes,
he was taken.
I agree, Bob. But let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
When is America going to allow Black America to exercise their First Amendment rights, their Fourth Amendment rights? When are we going to sit back and recognize that we're all people, and it's not based upon old-fashioned folklore that blacks are all bad, and we have to sit back and start and begin to judge them just because they're a different skin tone?
I agree with you, Les. America needs to be woke up that there is another side to the coin. I am not disputing that. I will not dispute that, because indeed America needs to be woke up that there's a flip side to the coin, that there are just as many, if not a overwhelming majority of blacks who are good people, who are good citizens, who are staying within their rights under the law, the right of freedom of speech, the right of assembly. They should enjoy the exact same rights as white America. I am not disputing that at all. What I am...
Bob, you just demonstrated the point that I was bringing up about selective bias. You sat back just then and unconsciously your mind sat back and you made a statement that could be really offensive. But when we look at what happened in New York,
well, the question
this gentleman really didn't do anything out of his constitutional rights.
Yes, he did.
What
yes, he did.
Harassing me for?
Okay,
all of a sudden it accelerated because one, I may have sat back and stepped back if I was the police and just let him do what he's going to do until I could have brought somebody maybe of the opposite persuasion to sit back that could negotiate with him and find out what was wrong.
So now only black officers can challenge black perps? How does that work?
No. We're not saying that. We're not saying that, and don't think that. But what I'm saying is
That's what it sounded like.
There's a study that just was released from the University of Berkeley, and they had black and they had white. They had people with guns and they had people without guns, and they asked them, they said, shoot the person that you thought would sit back and do most bodily harm. The study found out that there were more white folk as well as black folk that would shoot people according to color than to sit back and actually rationalize what was going on in the situation. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not disputing the fact that the vast majority of people that end up on the wrong side of law enforcement's weapons is blacks. That is not disputable. I mean, that is obviously evident. But the thing, even I don't care. I'm looking at it from the cop's perspective. I'm a cop, and I'm called to the scene of where a suspect is acting erratically when I'm asking him simple questions. Number one, I'm going to call in backup. Number two, I'm going to try to ease the tension we may not have seen even in the Gardner case. And the thing is, if it escalates from there, and it is the suspect, which I am trying to get straight answers from, is being extremely uncooperative, then I'm going to have to do what is necessary to, control the situation, to regain control. If it means using a taser, or having another officer help detain the individual. While what happened in New York is a tragedy, and I do not dispute that, while in my judgment it was murder, it should not have gotten to that point where a illegal chokehold was used. And I am not disputing the fact that it is a vast majority of blacks who end up on the wrong end of that gun. The point still remains, if these individuals, black, white, Asian, no matter what their race is, no matter the race of the officers involved, should not, those suspects said, okay, officer, I will do what you're telling me to do. I will calm down. Why is it so hard for people today to realize if I cooperate, I live to fight another day? That's all I'm asking.
Bob, let me give you an answer to that, and I'm going to go back to a story that personally happened to me. Matter of fact, it was back in the 70s. I'm on my way to General Motors. Okay. Didn't run the stop sign, which the police stopped me for, but because my car had the dragster wheels, and I'm sitting back cooperating with the officers 100%, and I'm asking them questions. Why are you stopping me? Why did you stop me? I get slammed down on the hood of a trunk of my car in front of individuals for no obvious reason, and the black cop, and there was a black and a white cop. The white cop says he looks suspect. Now here it is, I'm working at General Motors every day. I'm 17 years old, snuck in, which wasn't legal, but I snuck in, and I'm going to put it out there. Why did I get harassed for questioning and asking a simple question? What are you giving me 4 tickets for? 4 tickets, not 1, but 4.
4 tickets. Well, like I said, Les, you're living proof that there is a broken system. Okay, I'm not going to say there isn't. There is a broken system. So, and Fred, I know you've been sitting there very quietly, and I know you've got something to say in reference to this. So go ahead. I'm going to give you a few minutes here.
Well, I watched the Eric Garner video. I must have watched it 20 times. Okay, first of all, Eric Garner had 30 prior arrests beginning in 1980, okay? Point 1. Point 2, he had been warned, and the police had spoken to him on several occasions about selling loose cigarettes in front of that business. Selling loose cigarettes is also against the law. Point 3, Eric Garner was 6'3" and 350 pounds. The initial officer on the scene, you can look in the video, is like a foot shorter than him. And point 4, when officers were asking him to cooperate, he threw his hands up, started screaming at them. And my last point is, Eric Garner died of cardiac arrest in the ambulance. Okay? If he had simply put his hands behind his back like he was commanded to, which, by the way, is the law in this country. When a cop tells you, place your hands behind your back, you're under arrest, You have the right to remain silent. That's it. End of story. There's nothing after that. After that, you call a lawyer and you take it to court.
Right. That's my point.
End of story. If he had put his hands behind his back and complied, he would be alive.
World.
All right, let's go ahead.
Realistic world. Not in Fantasy Island, not in something that we make up and we perceive to be. Because we use a lot of perception, and we use it's a lot of delusion to what we see when we watch television. Because I don't look at, I look at the tape, and I watch the tape. This was really senseless. It was senseless on both parts. I'm not saying that one was right and one was wrong. I'm just saying that if you look at it, the situation could be handled a hell of a lot different. And we have to learn that people are human beings and stop just going in with this, I have the authority, but I'm not going to listen. I don't hear you.
Right. I agree with you, Les.
I hear you attitude.
You know,
I've got to hear you in order to communicate with you.
I don't dispute that, Les. I don't dispute that at all, because we as a society, we need to listen, and that's the only way things are going to get done. That's why I have roundtables like this, because it gives everybody's opposing views. Now, Jonathan, you've been very quiet. You've been listening to the conversation. So let me bring you in for your interpretation of what is going on.
Oh, well, again, Mike, Eric Garner was clearly in violation of some code or statute, and he may have been, as Les said, to some extent set up by the store owners because they had it with what he was doing. Maybe they perceived him as hurting their own business, and that's not illegitimate. That's okay. I just think that we need to get away as a society, many of us on the panel, but as a society, we need to get away from polarized thinking. And what I mean by that is this: yes, cops need to be respected. Their job is tough, but also individuals that they are here to protect and serve need to be respected. And I would say if Eric Garner is on the street selling loose cigarettes, his motivation for doing that is probably not the middle finger in the air to the so-called system. It's because that's the way he has to make money, and he has a family to feed. Okay, fine. Should he have had a real, a quote-unquote real job? Yeah, probably, but maybe he couldn't. Maybe he didn't. He clearly didn't. The question, the polarized thinking that I would love us to be able to get away from is either you have immediate and instant cooperation from suspects, or it's okay to use lethal force. There's got to be a middle ground in a sane society.
So here's my question. How do you unpolarize a society that is under the assumption that minorities, and I'm going to leave it in that respect. I'm not talking just about blacks here, Leslie. I'm talking, it is happening to the people that come here from, Iraq, the people that have moved here from Afghanistan. They're minorities. Okay, the Muslims. How do we unpolarize the belief, if you're, in today's society, that, hey, look, everybody's created equal, everybody has equal opportunity? When you hear about the events in the Middle East, you hear about, ISIS, you hear about, all the bad things. How can we unpolarize ourselves as a society to treat people equally?
Well, here's how we do it. Here's how we do it, Bob. First of all, you answered your own question. We sit back, and because people are from wherever they are from, we sit back and stereotype. Let's drop stereotypes. Let's start recognizing people as people, and we can get along. if you look at young people now, you see more intermingling amongst relations and racial people than ever before. Young people really don't care, and they're trying not to hear this, but we are holding on to old standards that we must let go, because we have to realize that the world has changed. We are looking at people for flesh and blood and not for the color of skin.
You know, so the thing is that, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, Leslie, is that, you know, on my program many times I have brought up the fact that the only way that we're going to break this current cycle, and I'm gonna leave it at that, say it is a cycle, is if we educate at the very lowest levels of the educational system. I'm talking when kids go into preschool. You know, they need to start being made aware that we as human beings, we're all here on this planet Earth, and we all need to get along. Am I asking for a utopia? I don't think so. What I'm asking...
I don't think you're asking for that either, and I will support what Leslie says in this way. You know, my son always rolls his eyes at, he says, at people in our generation. You know, I'm 64, because he really does feel, and I think there's some real evidence for what my son says and what Leslie's saying. There's a lot more go along, get along in his generation. There's a lot more a sense that we don't need to be this polarized. My son's, you know, crowd is not only racially mixed, it's religiously mixed, it's ethnically mixed, and they don't think that there's anything strange about it, and that's nice.
You know, the thing is, I'm going to be 61 here in about 11 days, and you know, I grew up in the era of the civil rights movement, you know, the love era and all that, and I consider myself a very open-minded person, you know, to different things. But yet, you know, it still bothers me that people of, you know, Jonathan's, my generation, are so polarized of the past. We can't seem to get beyond this, and it seems that what is occurring is our polarization is affecting the youth of today. And, you know, like I said, you know, earlier, we need to break that cycle. And people have to be made aware. The only way this is going to happen is if our generation first says, "Hey, you know, I was wrong. You know, this was bad." I mean, look how long it took before, you know, and Leslie will, you know, probably back this up. Look how long it took just for the blacks to get the right to vote. Look what they had to go through. It's not done. It's far from done. But it isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to have to come in increments. And I honestly believe we need to start the education process of humanity looking out for each other at the very, very roots. And that is starting to educate at the preschool level. If we did this, now here's my question. We've got about 9 minutes. If we did this, we started educating at that level, would we see the next generation look differently at not only world events, but at each other? Would we see that happen, or would we once again see the polarization restart all over again?
Oh, I think there would be improvement if we did what you were saying, no doubt.
What do you think, Leslie?
Well, I tell you what, here's what it is. We've already started that, but what we have to do is sit back at the round table like we're doing right now, and we have to really start addressing each other's issues and come to a compromise.
All right, Fred, what do you think?
I got distracted for a moment. I apologize. Rephrase. Tell me your question again, Bob.
The question is, and now I'm hearing this echo again. The question is if we start teaching our children at a very, very young age, you know, right from preschool, to break the cycle of, you know, unpolarize them against the current conceptions of minorities, would that make this generation looking at a better future, or are they going to once again face the polarization, and we're not going to break it?
I really don't know. If you'd asked me that 30 years ago, I would probably say yes. But I don't know that that's gonna. I don't know that I could say that would happen now, because the mainstream media they're shoving this agenda. This is profitable. It's not just a matter of teaching young people. I mean, if you look at the protests, it's mostly young people of all colors that are joining with this fight against law enforcement in the in the country. So, yeah, I don't know that would work, because kids become adults, and the information that flies across the internet and mainstream media now is so fast and hard to refute.
So how would we break the ongoing cycle? I mean, like you said, you got social media, a couple seconds, boom, it's out there for a worldwide audience.
Well, you need leadership. You need real leadership to not glorify it. This is what you're seeing going on now. You have DC and political leadership and the mainstream media that immediately picks a side, and they immediately, that whoever's getting arrested or whoever gets shot, they're the victim.
Well, here's the thing. So what I'm asking.
Let me just say, I haven't seen half of what Fred just said. I agree that there are media outlets who could be interpreted as having become overly excited or even glorifying this. I haven't seen political leadership, elected political leadership, glorifying.
Really?
I think that's an overstatement, frankly.
Oh, I don't. 2009, immediately before anybody knew, the Professor Gates story had just hit the paper, and Obama came out and said the Boston police acted stupidly.
Well, wait a minute.
Anyone knew what happened? Here was
that the only link between what we've been talking about, Fred, and that is that it involved black people. If you're going to bring up any incident that ever involved any black person and any politician, well, then you can prove any point in the world. You could prove that the St. Louis Cardinals are going to win next year because they have some black athletes.
Well,
I mean,
that's
the issue here is who has you made the claim, Fred, that political leadership has glorified what happened in Ferguson, what happened in New York, these unarmed black men's killings. I don't know of an elected political leader who has in any way glorified those things.
Well, the thing is, what I'm trying to get at, okay, is we're going to be carrying on this discussion, many times over, and I want to thank all you guys for definitely being on the show. But my understanding and what I would love to see, I mean, granted, maybe what I'm asking for is a utopia, but the thing is the conversation has to be started, and I'm hoping by the three of you being on my program today, we have indeed raised awareness, and I think that is what needs to be done here in America. We need to have these discussions at the kitchen table in right at the very heart of where the issue is, and it is in each and every one of us. And I'm certain, and I may be wrong in this assumption, because you know what they say, if you assume something, you make an ass out of you and me. But it's my assumption that we all can agree that in order to see change, we need to have these discussions at everybody's kitchen table. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, Bob, let me
right.
say it like this. You know what? It's not the young people. It's the old heads. It's me and it's you. It's the ones before me and you that didn't grow up in that new generation that has caused this problem. And because they institutionalize and instill within their children this thing, look at what just happened. I kind of want to go off base. Look what happened there with the kids that ran it, the hurrah song on the bus about the N-word.
Right.
It's just people have to sit back. Let the world evolve and let people learn to be people and let it do what it's supposed to do, and let's stop interfering.
In a lot of ways, I agree with you, Les. I really do. In a lot of ways, I do agree with you. But like I said, my opinion. Everybody knows what my opinion is we need to have these discussions, and we need to get people involved right on at the kitchen table. Guys, I'm going to ask you guys all to hold on here for just a minute. Everybody else, I want to remind you, Les Jackson, Open Talk, joins us on the 23rd, starting at 5 p.m. And I want to welcome Les to the Starcom Radio Network. You can also hear Fred Brower and the Fred Brower Report Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And, of course, Jonathan Wolfman of Passionate Justice right here this Saturday at 2 p.m. And a program note, if you live in Savannah, Georgia, you're going to want to listen to next week's program because I haven't figured out the day yet, but I have audio that's going to astound you, that's going to tick you off right from Edna Jackson's office herself. What can I tell you? It's going to be fascinating, it's going to be disturbing, but you need to decide. And with that, it is time for me to get out of here. Stay tuned because coming up right after NPR News, Ed Till will be with you till 4 o'clock. Until Monday, 6 a.m., this is Bob Williams. Take care of yourselves.